Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a source document that puts forward a really bold idea. It asks, what if the story of Christianity wasn't a totally unique event, but actually a faith that was carefully constructed, built piece by piece from older myths and even political agendas?
So, where do our most foundational stories really come from? I mean, the ones that shape entire civilizations. The document we're looking at today takes that question head-on. It challenges the very bedrock of one of the world's most influential narratives, and it suggests that its origins, well, they might not be what you think.
Okay, so here's the core argument laid out in this source material. It claims Christianity is what it calls a sophisticated, anthropogenic construct. Now, that's a fancy way of saying it wasn't a singular historical lightning strike. Instead, the argument is that it's a clever blend, an assembly of older myths and political goals, all put together for a very specific purpose.
All right, so if this story was constructed, where did the builders start? According to the analysis we're breaking down, the first blueprint wasn't drawn up on Earth at all. Nope, it was found up in the sky, in the predictable, cyclical dance of the sun and the stars.
This brings us to a key concept in the document called astrotheology. It's a pretty wild idea. Basically, it's the theory that major religious figures are actually personifications of things in the sky, planets, stars, and especially the sun. And this document posits that Jesus is the sun personified, and that this one idea is the master key to decoding the whole story.
And this is where the argument gets really, really specific. Check this out. The source literally maps the sun's annual journey onto the life of Jesus, starting with the winter solstice. On December 21st, the sun hits its lowest point in the sky. It's the death of the sun, right? Then, for 3 days, it seems to just stop, hanging low in the sky near the Southern Cross constellation, the Cruce. And then, on December 25th, it starts moving north again, bringing longer days. It's reborn.
The analysis keeps going, connecting this celestial map to the nativity story itself. So, on December 25th, as the sun is born, what's on the eastern horizon? The constellation Virgo, the Virgin. So, the sun is born of a virgin. It gets deeper. The location, Bethlehem, in Hebrew translates to house of bread. And what's the ancient symbol for the constellation Virgo? A maiden holding a sheaf of wheat. Bread. It's pretty layered.
And it doesn't stop with the main character either. According to this viewpoint, the entire supporting cast is symbolic too. The 12 disciples, they're presented as an allegory for the 12 signs of the zodiac, the constellations that Jesus, as the sun, travels through on his journey across the sky each year.
Okay, so that's the cosmic blueprint. Let's move on to the next layer of this whole argument. The document claims that on top of the astrotheology, there was also direct borrowing, outright copying, from other, much older religions that were neighbors in the ancient world.
Now, this is pretty stunning. The document lays out this side-by-side comparison, arguing that the life story of Jesus is almost identical to that of the Egyptian god Horus, who came thousands of years earlier. Look at this. Both born on December 25th, both announced by a star in the east, both had 12 followers, both were baptized, both resurrected after 3 days. The source presents these parallels as just too numerous to be a coincidence.
To back this up, the source points to the famous I am statements from the Gospel of John. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The claim here is that these are almost word-for-word lifts from inscriptions in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, spoken by, you guessed it, Horus. As the document puts it, the Jesus of the Gospels is speaking the lines of an Egyptian god. And it wasn't just ancient Egypt. The document argues that Christianity also absorbed key features from its direct rivals at the time. Take Mithraism, for example. This was a super popular religion with the Roman soldiers. And what was its central ritual? A sacred meal of bread and wine, believed to grant immortality. Sound familiar? The source points to this as the clear origin for the Christian Eucharist.
Okay, so we've seen the cosmic blueprint and the mythological blueprint. Now, the analysis shifts gears and looks inward, at the Bible itself. The claim here is that the text was actually engineered, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident, to create the specific narrative we know today.
And here's a huge example of that, the virgin birth. The document argues this core belief is actually based on a simple mistranslation. See, the original Hebrew prophecy in Isaiah used the word Alma, which just means young woman. But centuries later, when it was translated into Greek, the translators used the word Parthenos, which specifically means virgin. So according to this analysis, the author of Matthew read the Greek version, saw the word virgin, and then wrote a story to fulfill a prophecy that didn't even exist in the original text.
And to really drive this point home about the text being constructed, the source points out the contradictions in what is arguably the most important event, the resurrection. If you look at the four Gospels side by side, the details are all over the place. Who went to the tomb? Was it one woman or many? What did they see? One angel? Two angels? One young man? What did they do next? The stories don't line up. The argument is that this looks a lot more like legends evolving over time than consistent eyewitness testimony.
So, let's recap the argument so far. You've got borrowed myths, you've got an engineered text, so what was the final ingredient? According to this document, it was pure political power. That's what it took to take all these pieces and forge them into an official, state-sponsored religion. A huge piece of this political strategy, the source claims, was to just rebrand popular pagan holidays. Let's start with Christmas. The document argues that basically every tradition we associate with it, the feasting, the merrymaking, exchanging gifts, even decorating with wreaths and greenery, was lifted directly from the wildly popular Roman festival of Saturnalia, which happened at the exact same time of year.
And it's the same story for Easter, according to this analysis. I mean, the name itself, Easter, is said to come from an Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring named Yostra. Her symbols of fertility were the hare and the egg. So, the Easter bunny and Easter eggs, it's all right there. Even the date is calculated based on the spring equinox, a classic pagan marker.
This all comes to a head, the analysis argues, at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. This wasn't a gathering of mystics in a desert. This was a political summit called by the Roman Emperor Constantine. And what did they do? They literally voted on the nature of God. Core doctrines were decided by a show of hands, and afterwards, any books that didn't fit the newly approved narrative, like the Gnostic Gospels, were suppressed and burned. The source argues the goal here was never theological truth, it was political unity for the empire.
So let's just pull all these threads together. The document we're examining identifies these four main fabrication mechanisms, if you will. You've got astrotheology, which turns star charts into biography, syncretism, which absorbs the competition's best features, mistranslation, which creates new stories out of old errors, and finally, political editing, which makes it all official state doctrine.
So in the end, the conclusion of this source material is that the Christian story isn't some historical one-off. Instead, it's something much older, much more universal. It's the latest chapter in humanity's oldest story, the worship of the light that conquers the darkness.
Which really leaves us with a pretty profound question to think about, doesn't it? What does it actually mean if a story is a myth? Does that automatically make it untrue? The source we've looked at seems to suggest that maybe it just means the story's power and its truth come from a different place than we thought. And that's the idea we'll leave you with today.